The Armed Forces publication of the United States, Stars and Stripes, recently reported that the U.S. Navy is requesting as much as $7 billion, and at any rate a substantial figure, to refurbish, recommission essentially, the USS George Washington, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, despite the fact that under U.S. congressional sequestration laws that fund was to have been cut. In other words, they're asking for money in addition to the projected 2015 so-called defense budget, the military budget for the United States. And we have to recollect that as of 4 years ago, it's diminished somewhat, but with special apportionments for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, that 4 years ago, actually 3 years ago, in 2011, the budget of the U.S. Defense Department was somewhere in the neighborhood of $728 billion, which, adjusted for inflation and what are called real dollars, was the highest amount since World War II. That it was the highest figure since 1945. And this is for a country, of course, that is not technically at war, against any formidable adversary at any rate. We also have to keep in mind the aircraft carrier in question, USS George Washington, is one of 14 U.S. aircraft carriers. They're all nuclear-powered, and they're all what are called super carriers, based on how much tonnage of water they displace. The U.S. has, in fact, all the world's nuclear-powered aircraft carriers except for one, which is the French ship Charles de Gaulle. They have all the super carriers, and enough really to deploy to most every part of the world simultaneously. Some may be in repair or may be docked at any given point, but in theory, the U.S. has the ability to deploy somewhere in the neighborhood of a dozen or more aircraft carriers simultaneously. This is unprecedented. Just as it's unprecedented that the U.S. Navy divides up the world into 6 area of responsibilities for its 6 fleets, naval fleets, so that we have to get some idea of the unprecedented size, scope, and intensity of U.S. naval, in general, military operations globally. There's never been anything like it, of course, with another country. So that the plans by the U.S. Navy to refurbish and relaunch the USS George Washington has to be seen in 2 contexts, I believe. One is, there's an economic component to this. This is a potential boondoggle for the military-industrial complex, which makes money off this. And second of all, it's an indication that far from retreating, the U.S. will continue, if not expand, its aggressive military deployments abroad, and that the aircraft carriers, which we know are rotated regularly in very sensitive and also strategically important parts of the world, the Mediterranean Sea, the Arabian Sea, and of course increasingly in Far East Asia right now, where the U.S. has signaled its Asia-Pacific pivot, wherein 60% of U.S. naval forces are now to be deployed to the Asia-Pacific region. We're seeing increased brinksmanship and aggressivity on behalf of the United States internationally in the military sphere, directly or through proxies, and that a vital component of that is the fleet of U.S. aircraft carriers, of which the USS George Washington evidently is going to be maintained and relaunched.